For today's recipe, Link will be joined by IQ, Gastro Bob, and backed up as always by Guinea Page and the Animal Crackers.
Today, we're gonna make whole wheat bread. Sure, it's easy to go to the store and just buy bread, but making bread at home doesn't take very much time at all. To make 1 loaf of bread, here's what you'll need.
3½ cups of whole wheat flour, 1¼ teaspoon of salt, 1 cup of milk, 1/4 cup of vegetable oil, 1/4 cup of honey, 2 tablespoons of warm water, 1 teaspoon of sugar, and 1 packet of active yeast.
This packet contains just a little over 2 teaspoons of yeast. This little amount has the power to make all this flour rise. But what exactly is yeast? Can you give us the scoop, IQ?
I'd be happy to, Link. In biology, there are over 20 kingdoms of living things.
Kingdoms? You mean like kings and queens and a whole bunch of royalty?
In this case, I'm referring to the scientific meaning of kingdom, which is more about the grouping of natural things, such as the plant kingdom and the animal kingdom. They're grouped together because they share things in common. Yeast are part of the fungi kingdom. So are mushrooms.
Yeast are single-celled organisms. They're all around us. They're alive.
They're in the dirt and on the plants, even on our clean skin. And that's no lie. You should be impressed. Yeast cells might be small, but in food science, they can't be surpassed. And for the record, fungi aren't part of the animal kingdom or the plant kingdom. They're their own kingdom. Yeah. If yeast are microscopic, there must be a lot of yeast on this very teaspoon. How many do you think, Gastro Bob?
Believe it or not, Link, that teaspoon holds about 75 billion yeast cells.
Wow. If 1 teaspoon has 75 billion yeast cells and 1 packet has just over 2 teaspoons, that's 2 times 75. Wow, that's over 150 billion. For 150 billion yeast cells, they are pretty quiet.
Dried yeast is alive but dormant, kind of like sleep. Proofing means you're waking up the yeast or activating it by adding some warm water and letting it sit. A little bit of sugar helps so the yeast have something to feed on while they wake up. It's a good idea to proof your yeast before adding to the rest of the ingredients, so you can be sure the yeast is still good.
Let's begin by waking up our yeast.
You got it, Link. Gadzooks, we'll do it with science.
You're right, Gastro Bob. We'll do it by proofing our yeast. Into this plastic bottle, we'll put 1 package of yeast, a little bit of water, and sugar. In just a few minutes, these yeast cells are gonna wake up. You'll know that when the balloon begins to fill. Gastro Bob, can you keep an eye on our experiment?
You got it, Link.
Let's get ready to make our dough. Like our science experiment, we'll begin by proofing our yeast. We'll add a teaspoon of sugar. Yeast love to feed on a little sugar, so this will help rev them up. Now, you'll need 2 tablespoons of warm water. Warm, not hot. If the water's too hot to dip your finger into, it'll be too hot for your yeast. See? The mixture is beginning to foam, which means the yeast is alive and beginning to release carbon dioxide. In this large bowl, we're gonna mix all our ingredients together. Our milk, our yeast, our oil, our honey, our salt, and our flour. Now it's time to mix it all up. The honey will add a nice flavor to the bread and also be something for the yeast to feed on.
Plus, there are sugars in the flour, Link, so those 150 billion yeast cells all have something to eat, as the liquid in the recipe wakes them up.
Speaking of yeast waking up, let's check in on our yeast experiment. How's it going, Gastro Bob?
Amazing! You can tell all those yeast cells are alive and awake by the expansion of the balloon.
All right, here comes the fun part, Gastro Blasters. Now it's time to knead the dough. I'm gonna sprinkle a little bit of flour on my clean countertop. This will stop the dough from sticking to it. Now we need to knead, which means to work the dough.
Kneading dough is an important step when making bread. Not only does it make sure the yeast is distributed throughout the dough, kneading also helps develop gluten. That's a type of protein that's in the flour. Think of gluten like a weightlifter. Kneading strengthens the gluten so the dough binds together and becomes more stretchy. While the yeast works to make the dough rise, the gluten holds on to the carbon dioxide gases that the yeast produce. With that combination of gluten and the CO2 gases from the yeast, you've got dough that gets airy and stays airy.
Phew, this kneading's gonna take at least 10 minutes. This calls for the help of the Ninja Kneader. Ah! Hello, Gastro Blasters, and what a day for witnessing the Ninja Kneader in action. With a punch and a kick. Whoa, that dough was not expecting the Ninja Kneader to unfold a hand chop. Take a look at that. The Ninja Kneader got a hold of the dough with an open fist, followed by an open throw, all in the name of developing gluten. How does he do that? Thanks, Ninja Kneader. The dough feels elastic. Notice how it bounces back? That means the gluten's been fully developed. I have this other bowl here that I've greased with a little bit of oil so the dough doesn't stick. We're gonna cover our bowl with a clear piece of plastic wrap. And we'll set it in a warm place to rise. How's that experiment coming, Gastro Bob?
It looks like it's going to be a big success.
Link and Gastro Bob's balloon experiment proves that the yeast are doing their job. When we breathe in air, we breathe out carbon dioxide gas as waste. The yeast cells are doing something similar. They are breathing in oxygen, O2, and burping out carbon dioxide, CO2. That's 150 billion yeast cells burping 150 billion times.
Cool! The carbon dioxide is gonna make the dough rise and double in size. But that will take about an hour or two, depending how warm your kitchen is. So, in the meantime, let's tidy up. Lab rat, you know what to do. Speed dial, please.
Let's tidy up, let's tidy up, let's tidy up, let's tidy up. When you're finished and the cooking's done, even though you had lots of fun, you gotta clean up the pots and pans, gotta put them away, you gotta wash your hands, gotta do your best to clean up your mess and tidy up, and tidy up, and tidy up. Come on, do your best to clean up your mess and tidy
Whoa!
up.
The dough's risen and doubled in size. I'm gonna transfer it over to this loaf pan, which I've also greased. We'll reuse the plastic wrap to cover the dough one more time. And we're gonna let it sit till it rises just above the rim of the pan. Lab rat, speed dial some more if you please. The dough looks like it's risen. You can press a clean fingertip to the dough. If it leaves a mark, it's ready for the oven. We're ready for our bake-off. Gastro Bob, you preheated the oven to 375 degrees, right?
Yes, the oven is ready to go.
Be careful with that balloon, Gastro Bob.
Don't worry, Link. Safety is my #1 priority.
The dough is in the oven and will take about 40 minutes to bake. As you can see, making bread's pretty simple. As long as you remember, there's science involved. Make sure your yeast is active, your gluten's developed by kneading, and your dough has had enough time to rise. Or else, you might have a case of the badly behaving bread. Isn't that right, Detective?
3 loaves. 3 sad examples of what can happen if you're not vigilant. Hockey puck. you're dense. Sinkhole, you got a hole in your story. And gooey, you're leaving some sticky fingers behind. Gooey, you're underbaked. Sinkhole, you spent too much time rising. And hockey puck, you didn't take enough time to rise. Case closed.
No badly behaving bread here. It's been baked, cooled, and we're ready for a slice. Notice all the small bubbly holes in the bread? That means the gluten and the yeast have done their job. We have light, fluffy bread. Hello, Gastro Blasters. What a day for baking as we witnessed over 150 billion yeast cells at work in the whole wheat dough, doing the heavy lifting, AKA leavening, with gluten in for some tag team support to trap those CO2 bubbles. We've ended up with bread that just looks too good to eat. Of course we're gonna eat it. Whoa! I had a gastro blast making whole wheat bread with you today. Whoa! Hold on, Gastro Bob!